In this chapter of the video series, I'm going to describe the use of native menus. A native menu is a menu component that's hosted and presented by the hosting operating system of the Air application. In contrast to pure Flex-based menus, which are always presented inside the Flex window, a native menu is presented either as part of the native menu that wraps the Flex application, or, for example in Mac OS X, as part of the native operating system interface. If you're following along with the exercises in this chapter, you can import the Flex project that contains all of the starting code. From the Flex Builder menu, select File, Import, Flex Project. Click the Browse button next to Archive File. Navigate to the Chapter 07 folder under the Exercises area, and select Chapter 07 Begin Project.zip. Open the project and click Finish, and that will import the project into Flex Builder. Then go to the Flex Navigator view. Open the project, open its source folder, and then open the application file using nativemenu.mxml. This application has two empty methods named init and selectHandler. The init method is being called upon the application complete event of the application. The selectHandler is an event handler function that I'll use later in this exercise. When you create a menu, you always start off by creating an instance of the native menu class. This class can be added either to a Windows or to a Mac environment, but you add it differently depending on which operating system you're in. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the particular code for your operating system. But then in the next video, I'll show you how to dynamically determine which operating system is currently hosting the Air application and execute the correct code for the current user. To get started, place the cursor inside the empty init method and add an extra line of code. The first step is to create a menu object. Declare a local variable named menu, data typed as the native menu class, and instantiate it using the native menu class's noarguments constructor method. I'll expand my editor to see as much code as possible. Now, for each item you want to add to the menu, create an instance of the native menu item class. When you instantiate this object and call the constructor method, you can pass in a string value, which will be the menu item's label. Create a new menu item like this: var menu item 1, data typed as a native menu item. Then instantiate it using equals new, then call the constructor method of the class, native menu item, and then pass in a label. I'll put in a label of file. Next, you'll listen for the select event. When the user selects a particular menu item, it dispatches a select event, and you'll pass the event object to the pre-declared selectHandler method, like this: menu item 1 dot add event listener, listen for the event that's represented by the constant event.select, and pass the event object to the selectHandler method. Now add the menu item to the menu, like this: menu.addItem, and pass in the menu item. Now you'll create another menu item. Declare another variable named menu item 2. Once again, data typed as a native menu item object, and constructed from the class's constructor method, and this time pass in a label of edit. The next two steps are the same as for the first menu item, so I'll go up to the previous two lines and select the code that adds the event listener and adds the menu item to the menu, copy that to the clipboard, and then paste it at the end of the method. Then I'll go back and change menu item 1 to menu item 2 for both bits of code. Now the next step is to actually add the menu to your application. The code for this will look a little bit different depending on whether you're working on Windows or the Mac. For Windows, you add the menu to the actual native window that wraps the application. The code looks like this: stage.nativewindow.menu equals menu. Now if you're working on Mac, and I'm not, so I'm just going to comment this code out once I've typed it in. For Mac OS X, you use a bit of code that looks like this: nativeapplication.menu equals menu. When you call this code on the Mac, it replaces the standard File Edit menu that displays on all Mac native applications. It's also possible to add menu choices to a Mac menu if you want, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in the next video. Now again, I'm running on Windows here, so I'm going to comment that code out, and I'm only going to use the Windows version, stage.nativewindow.menu equals menu. Now I'll go down to the selectHandler method, and I'll add a call to the trace method to detect and report when the user selects a menu item. I'll pass in a literal string, menu item selected, and then I'll concatenate the label of the selected menu item like this: event.target.label. Now I'll run the application in debug mode. When the application appears, it displays my two menu items at the top. Now again, if you're working on Mac OS X and you used the Mac specific code that I showed you, then you'll see the menu choices appear at the top of the screen. Select either of the menu items, and you should see in the console in the background that the trace method is outputting the selected menu's label. There's the file, and there's the edit menu item. Now again, in the next video, I'll show you how to determine which kind of menu is supported, and then add it to the right place dynamically.